The First War for Armageddon is the least well known of the three Armageddon wars and involved the forces of Chaos and the Imperium. It was the culmination of years of preparation by the demon Primarch Angron, favoured of Khorne, to reunify the World Eaters after their shattering at the hands of Khorne the Betrayer after the Battle of Skalathrax. The war began within the hated region known as the Eye of Terror. The forces within, being devoted to chaos, usually fight each other, but occasionally and inexplicably they put aside their rivalries to form an assault on their common enemy, the Imperium. In this case, the unity of the powers of chaos was triggered by the arrival of the Space Hulk Devourer of Stars around the Demon world. The Hulk was large enough to carry a huge chaos force to attack Imperial worlds. The capricious currents of the warp drew the invasion force to the Imperial Hive World of Armageddon in 444.M41. Meanwhile, on Armageddon, a series of strange events culminated in armed rebellion breaking out in half a dozen hives. Armageddon consists of three main land masses. Most human life is located on the main continent, which is split into two parts, Armageddon Prime and Armageddon Secundus, separated by the thick band of jungle known simply as the Equatorial Jungle. The revolts were quickly put down in Armageddon Secundus, but amongst the more widely scattered hives of Armageddon Prime they proved more difficult to eradicate. As the planetary defense forces seemed capable of dealing with the revolt, no additional units were sent by the Imperium. Armageddon was a very long way from the Eye of Terror, and no one suspected the cause for the revolts was more sinister than simple civil unrest. Busy containing the rebellion, Imperial forces were caught by surprise when the Devourer of Stars arrived in the Armageddon system. The Devourer of Stars housed an enormous Chaos army led by the demon Primarch Angron. Chaos Marines from the World Eaters Legion, cultists, demon hosts, mutants, beastmen, and hordes of demonic creatures poured from the Space Hulk and descended on Armageddon Prime. The insidious effects of chaos were quickly felt as nearly half the planetary defense force went over to the invaders. The bloodlust-driven World Eaters descended upon the planet's populace with a fury, butchering millions in the first weeks. The few remaining loyal defenders were quickly routed from Armageddon Prime. Falling back through the jungles in the south, the survivors joined up with the units from Armageddon Secundus and prepared to make a last-ditch defense along the rivers of the Styx and Terran. The Imperial defense was well organized. Unknown to the forces of chaos, Logan Grimner and his great company of Space Marines from the Space Wolves chapter had been assigned to this sector of the Imperium, and they moved quickly to help the beleaguered Imperial defenders. They gained valuable time as Angron raised bloody monuments from the wreckage of the dead instead of pressing his advantage. In addition, his power was dependent on a nearby warp storm, and when it lulled the defenders gained precious time to organize a counterattack. When his army emerged from the jungles that separated Armageddon Prime from Armageddon Secundus they found the defenders ready and waiting, and reinforced by the Space Wolves. Grimner's commanding presence and charisma rallied the terrified defenders of Armageddon's. Huge battles erupted along the entire front. The Space Wolves were outnumbered 1,000 to 1, but nonetheless Grimner led the charge. Taking the fight to the Chaos Horde, the Great Wolf led an armored assault straight across the River Terran into the World Eater Horde, inflicting heavy losses on the traitors before withdrawing. The enraged World Eaters pursued the Space Wolves' mechanized forces into the jungle, falling into a combined Space Wolf/Steel Legion ambush along the Terran and slaughtered. The Space Wolves waded into the river itself and set about the Chaos Horde in a mad frenzy, battling for hours and holding the line. However, in the west, the assault along the river Styx was spearheaded by Angron himself and the Cruor Praetoria. The Primarch and his bloodthirsters smashed through the Imperial lines and led his forces towards Hive Infernus and Hive Hell's Reach. The Imperial Guard and Space Wolves forces managed to desperately hold the line and bought enough time for the Imperium to unleash the Grey Knights. It was now that the Imperium unleashed his secret weapon. When Logan Grimner realized the nature of their foe, he called for the support of the Grey Knights, as only the chapter militant of the Inquisition's demon hunters had the ability to truly defeat a demonic entity as powerful as Angron. The Grey Knights dispatched 109 Terminator assault marines who attacked Angron directly, along with the Cruor Praetoria, his bodyguard of a dozen bloodthirsters, by teleporting into the center of the demon army. At the same time, the Space Wolves led a massive Imperial counterattack. Initially Angron and his escorts decimated the Grey Knights, the Primarch wiping out 5 Grey Knights Terminators with a single stroke of his black blade. However, thanks to the psychic might of the young recruit Hyperion, the black blade was shattered and the Grey Knights were now at a significant advantage. Soon after, Brother Captain Terra Mar Aurelian was killed while personally banishing Angron back to the warp for 100 years and a day. The loss of their leader, coupled with the surprise assault from the remaining Imperial forces, led to the near-complete rout of the Chaos forces on Armageddon. The other demons vanished without Angron, and the remaining cultists, mutants and traitors turned to flee in panic. They were pursued into the Ash Wastes by the Space Marines and Steel Legion, and completely destroyed. Though the final battle was a major Imperial victory, only 13 Grey Knights survived.